Welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have Mas Basil Jazz. One of his advocacy to make management transform in a workplace cultures, one manager at a time. And of course, an author too, and the author of the book, Perfect Boat Tour, none other than Dr. A.P. Grow.
Hello, and thank you for having me on your show.
Welcome, Dr. Grow on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I
Sure.
miss?
Well, as your introduction said, I am involved in management consulting. I do a lot of writing and speaking on the topic and been doing that for about 30 years. But those many years ago, what got me interested in this is I was teaching a communication seminar and I was traveling around the country doing that. And as is common in a lot of these types of seminars, there'll be a section in there about communicating with difficult people. And almost every time, in every place, in every city, when I would get to this section, somebody would timidly raise their hand in the audience and say, "Well, what if the difficult person is your boss?" And without fail, whenever that question came up, the room would come alive with um, some energy there and wanting to know the answers to that. And I got to admit, I had had some maybe less than stellar bosses myself in the past, and I thought I was the only one. I didn't think that was a common thing until I had had that experience over and over again. So I thought maybe it's time to look into that. And so I did. I just at the time created a website. I was just directing people to go there and tell me about your bad management stories. And people had all kinds of stories, but they shook out to about five common threads. And that actually became the foundation for my first book, How to Not Suck as a Manager, which did really well in the marketplace. But honestly, the bar for that is kind of low. I mean, just just don't suck, right? That would be great. So we needed something a little higher level. And after a few more books came down the road, we did that. And to my current book, Perfect Posture, the framework for elite managers. And that's where we're at now.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Dr. Grau. Thank you, and hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. Let's start with the title. Boasture is a clever play on words. How do you define it, and how we separate perfect boasture from just being a good manager?
Right. Well, uh, a backstory on the title. I was in a cheesecake factory with my family. Part of my family is currently living in Boston right now. And and we were just playing with these words. Like I wanted something that indicated more than just good, honestly, and what could be better than good than perfect. But many of us had family at home that would tell us, sit up straight. I need your posture matters. Well, here we thought, well, why not call it posture? So you're right, it is a play on words. And I'll credit my daughter Gloria for saying that as we were dining there in the restaurant. It just seemed to have a right ring to it. And in the framework that the research I've done came up with, anything you could say about not just good, but great management comes down to three areas. It's really having excellence in competence, communication, and care. And these three areas, I mean, if a manager has two of them, they're going to be good. They're going to be all right. But if they have all three and they're very good in all three of these areas, well, in my way of thinking, that's perfect. I mean, I know nobody's perfect. I get that. But but if they can strive for this, they're going to get pretty close. And I don't think anyone on their teams, those that they supervise, would be at all complaining if the manager they had was solid in all three of these areas.
And Dr. Grow, what is the central problem or gap in modern management that you wrote this book to solve?
Right. Well, I see a lot of managers who are new, right? And they come anxious to do the work, really don't have a system to go from. They're often maybe just doing what they saw at home, the leaders they may have had at home, the parents or others, and they would follow that example. And that might work at home, but usually doesn't translate well to the workplace. I also saw a lot of managers who were struggling. Um, Maybe they had one particular team member who, well, was more of a, they weren't particularly a team player. They were more a team member who wanted to give challenges to the boss. And a third category of people who were experienced in the work, but still they had no formal training. And we know even if they have formal training, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be good at the work. Maybe they were great as an individual contributor and somebody said, you know what, since you're really good at doing this, let's put you in charge of the team who does that. And as we all know, the two sets of skills needed for those things are different. So the idea behind the book is to help these individuals who find themselves in these categories, new to the work, struggling in the work, or they're just looking for a framework upon which they can base their work. This answers that question for them. So many people are being thrown into management pools without their floaties. And I like to think this book will help them through that.
Well, interesting. Dr. Grow, your book promises a framework. Can you walk us through the core pillars or components that make up this structure for elite management?
Sure thing. I I found that no matter what skill you can talk about with respect to quality management, that each one of them is going to fall into one of three categories. It'll be a matter of competence, which can be divided into a couple areas, the functional skills as well as the technical skills. Technical skills being the, the knowledge that would be required in the specific job they have. How to oversee a daycare is going to vary quite a lot from the skills needed to manage a cement factory, for example. Those are technical skills. The other area with incompetence is functional skills, the jobs that are typically done by managers. And that would involve reporting or communication, maybe helping a individual improve or just change something that's happening, uh, taking care of meetings, handling meetings more effectively. This is all competence related, and that's the first of the three legs in this model. The next is communication. And in communication, we're talking about aligning communication with the situation or how to praise or motivate, which I'm sorry to say, maybe not enough managers are doing, but it can really make a difference in what team members uh, do in their own work. Facilitating course corrections can also fall into this category. Now, granted, some of these are going to be overlapping. It doesn't take just communication to help a person improve, it also takes some care. But that's just one example. And then we get into the third leg of the model, which is having that care. Um, Sometimes, people will ask me if there's just one thing that a manager could improve on that I'm not seeing happen. It's often this third leg. We all take it for granted that people are there and they're doing their work because they're getting paid, and many will say that's enough. But I'll challenge people who say that to try just a little bit more care in their work. A simple please and thank you, common courtesy, and Simon Sinek talks about this as well, can go a long ways. And certainly as a team member, we would all appreciate just a little bit of common courtesy. Yes, we are there, we're getting paid, and I appreciate that people are getting paid for their work. But that doesn't mean they can't be thanked occasionally for that work as well. That, along with helping a team member professionally develop, and supporting that effort, as well as building a rapport. These all fall within the care category of the model. So those are the three legs with some very quick examples of elements that fall within each of them: competence, care, and communication.
Miss Dr. Grow, how does posture differ from a traditional leadership concept like executive presence, or is it more about mindset, action, or a combination of both? Dr. Grow.
Correct. Yes, I do believe that earlier I said that everything you can talk about with respect to quality management will fall into one of these three categories. But I will concede that when it comes to personal preparation, personal mindset, perhaps what we often call efficacy, one's thinking about how they themselves will do or can do in the work, that is one area that um, has to come from within. But what I can offer, what this book offers, is a approach that they can use, specific use now strategies that will help them develop that confidence. If they don't have that confidence, if they don't have an approach, a systematic way in which to think about the work that they do and how they want to improve, then they're still going to struggle. So we're dealing with elements that I concede are not addressed in this book, and that's a personal position, a personal feeling about how they might go about their work. But what I can do, what we give in the trainings and in this book and related matters is information that will help them gain that confidence and have the right posture, if you will, uh, to their approach with their team members. So, yeah, right. People do have to have a certain bit of confidence to do this work well. But if they don't have that, I think this book can help them get that.
Yes, definitely, and thank you for sharing to the world. Dr. Grow, what is your own imperfect posture moment? A management failure or challenge that become the catalyst for developing this framework?
A time when my own management wasn't as good as it could be? Is
Yes,
that the question?
yes.
That's a
If
fair
you
question.
want to share.
Right. It was early in my career. I mean, there's been plenty, but one that comes to mind early in my career, I was working with a team member who wasn't doing quite as well as we needed them to. In fact, other team members were coming to me and kind of talking about that. And in confidence, this individual had told me that they were planning on moving on, and that's probably why they weren't paying as much attention to the work as they needed to. And it's kind of serious. So I don't mean to smile or joke about this at all. In that time frame, I I let that information out to another team member, that really this issue will resolve itself. They'll be moving on soon, so I don't think we need to make a big deal of it. Well, that was not my place to say, and that falls within the communication and also the care piece of the framework. I should have been thinking about the privacy of that team member. I should have been thinking about what's appropriate to say and not say. And though it was true that the issue would resolve itself within the week, I should not have been sharing that information with others. And so that was an early lesson in my career. And to the credit of that team member, they came back to me rather quickly to point that out. Like, what on earth? Why did you tell other people that? And I had no good response. All I could do was wholeheartedly apologize and
Mhm.
and and let that individual know that of my disappointment myself for doing that and ask their forgiveness for that.
Dr. Grow, as an author, what are your short term and long term goals?
My short-term and long-term goals. Well, I think that long-term, I'll just say this, I
Hmm.
I would love to rid the world of bad management stories. Now, maybe that's an impossible dream, but I'm not going to stop. And even if people told me to, I wouldn't, because I understand how important it is. I Now, the more positive side of this is I would like to help organizations around the world. I intend to help organizations around the world put in place frameworks for their own managers so that they're not putting people in place to oversee others without a solid framework with which to work from. That they don't, as I said earlier, put them in leadership roles without leadership floaties, if you will. And so long term, I would just like to see more and more organizations provide even this most basic way of thinking about how to supervise others. In the short term, I'd like to see this book sell millions. All right.
Yes.
Why mince words? I love to see millions of copies of this book, whether it's the hard copy, the Audible version, or a Kindle version, in the hands of managers around the world. And for those who want more, there's a course available. Also, of course, small group coaching that I do. And I'd love to see the word get out in any of those channels.
Good luck to your goals, Dr. Grow, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
For those who are looking to improve in their management,
Yes,
is that
please.
is that the question?
Yes, please.
I would suggest that they start with the competence piece and that they make sure to align what they think is important with what their own boss thinks is important. Sometimes we get focused on one part of a job, and maybe it is important, but what matters more, particularly at review times, would be what our own bosses think is important. And if we're not aligned with our own boss's ideas, that can be a problem. So, the one piece of advice I would give to start down this road would be to make sure that what we think is important and what our bosses think is important, as far as the skills to have and what to pay attention to, are in perfect alignment. That is the one piece of advice that I would share at this moment.
Piece of advice. And thank you for that, Dr. Grow. Thank you. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Sure, sure. I'll get to mine in a little bit. For now, though, I do want to say that early on, my work was influenced by a team of people, Kuzi and Posner, who wrote a book, and this was back in the late 80s, called The Leadership Challenge. And in the Leadership Challenge, they outline 5 elements of exceptional leadership, which is pretty important. And that's for an individual. Now that book is in its 7th edition, so it is continuing as a very popular book for those who oversee others. On the organizational level, I got a lot of good information from a book called Good to Great. And this was written by Jim Collins. This book is also a couple decades old now, but the information in there is still very valuable. Jim did a study of about 1,400 companies, and he identified only a few that he considered great. And in his book, he outlines what makes them great. So at the organizational level, that is a book very much worth um, looking at as well. I could go on. I've got more, but those are 2 good ones that I would start with.
Yes, thank you for that recommended books, Dr. Grow. And looking at the future of work, how will the framework of lead managers need to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think the care piece needs to be strengthened by a lot of managers currently, and will probably need to get even better in the future. Uh, a rising generation of workers do put a premium on attention, on personal attention. I don't mean this in a selfish way. I just mean that they've been raised in an era where individuality and an attention to individual has become even more valued. In the past, workplaces could get away with treating everybody the same, and I get that in many ways that still has to happen. I mean, we have universal policies that everyone has to follow, but at the team level, because the team leaders are the main contact individuals will have with that organization, their view of the organization is represented primarily by their managers. And so I think that element is going to get, or rather should get, even more attention. I'm not at all discounting the need for competence and good communication, but I believe that bringing more of the care element into the workplace will have an even greater impact in the future.
A greater impact indeed. And thank you so much for that empowering answer, Dr. Grow. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in third season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101, Love Letters, a Movie 101 review are in fourth season, as well as Music 101, Science 101, Sex 101 in its second season, and my baby podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Grow, ultimately, what is the legacy an elite manager with perfect posture leaves on their people and their organization?
Right. Well, I mentioned earlier that I think the primary feeling about any organization comes primarily from the manager themselves, and if they want, and I would expect organizations would want every one of their employees to have a good feeling about the organization itself, right? So earlier, I wrote the book How to Not Suck as a Manager, and I think many people were happy to have a manager who just didn't suck, right? They'd be okay if the manager was just okay. But why should our goal be that? I think those who apply this framework and systematically attend to each of these three areas, they're going to leave uh, an even stronger, lasting, good impression with those team members. Those team members are likely going to stay longer. They're going to be more effective and efficient in their work. There'll be a stronger sense of pride in being there and being part of that team, and that can do great things for a company's sales, their customer service, their overall health. But it all has to start at the team level.
Well, Dr. Grow, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world through
Thank
your
you. Thank you.
book. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, can you please invite our listeners to support your books, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sure. Thank you for that invitation. I definitely want to make sure everybody knows that although the products are available on the internet, the perhaps the best spot to go for them would be my own website, apgrow.com/store. And the reason I recommend that is because the price that we offer for the Audible book and for the ebook are half what you'll find elsewhere. And I can also offer uh, an infographic that would come with either product that is purchased, as well as a free copy of the Audible book, Change or Go: how to stop team player behavior, non-team player behavior from in the workplace. And the reason I offered that one as the bonus, the second bonus, is because that is one of the challenges that many managers struggle with the most. So I want to share information about that. So the website, apgrow.com/store, all the information's there. And thank you again for letting me share that information with your audience.
Definitely, yes, people, let's support Dr. AP Grow because if you support him for sure. More and more empowering books like this to come. So, Dr. Grow, thank you so much for your time.
Well, and thank you. It was my pleasure.
More to come, people. See you soon.